Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Dr. Keith Rowley retains his position as political leader of the PNM. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 7th December 2022. Details when we return. Welcome back. Members of the People's National Movement have spoken. They've elected the party's new executive following 3 days of voting in the PNM's internal elections. The election results were announced on Monday. Anselm Gibbs of TV6 News has this report.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley remains the political leader of the People's National Movement.
Dr. Keith Rowley has 92% of the votes cast.
Beating out all challengers by miles.
Mr. Junior Barak, 99 votes. Ms. Karen Teixeira, 345 votes. And Mr. Ronald Boynes, 243 votes. Keith Christopher Rowley, 8,424 votes.
Dr. Rowley got well over 50% of the votes to avoid any runoff vote. The results of the PNM's internal elections were announced on Monday.
And so we declare Mr. Minister Stuart Young as the chairman of the People's National Movement. We declare Ms. Nyan Gadsby Dolly as the vice chairman of the People's National Movement. We declare Mr. Kazim Hossain as the treasurer.
Voting took place on November 26th and 27th and on Sunday, December 4th.
The first voting day, we had 3,582 persons casting their votes on that day. On the next day, notwithstanding all the rain over that weekend, on the next day, the 27th of November, we had 5,506 persons casting their votes. And at the convention on the 4th, which was yesterday, we had 815 persons casting their votes.
Anselm Gibbs, TV6 News.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley retained his post as political leader of the PNM in a landslide victory in the party's internal elections on November 26th and 27th, and on Sunday, December 4th, which saw several posts in the party executive being contested. But according to the chairman of the party's election supervisory committee, the total number of votes cast equated to 10% of the total number of registered voters in the PNM. TV6's Joel Brown was there and reports.
On Monday, after announcing the results of the PNM's internal elections, which will see Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley serving another term as political leader, the party's election supervisory committee chairman, Anthony Roberts, gave a summary of the total number of votes cast for all of the executive posts that were contested,
giving us a total of 9,903 persons participating in the electoral process in the People's National Movement.
TV6 News sought some clarification about that in the context of the total number of registered voters in the party.
It is just under maybe around 10%.
We had follow-up questions regarding Mr. Roberts' confirmation that about 10% of the registered number of members of the PNM cast their ballots in the party's internal elections. Is the party concerned about that low voter turnout of its membership? Is that enough of a mandate for those who have been elected to the posts that they now hold in the party's executive?
And there might be several reasons why you couldn't reach the polling station. We know rain could have been one of it.
A reference to the adverse weather during the weekend of November 26th and 27th.
And that weekend in particular. But we opened up the to allow persons to be able to participate in the elections, right? I know that the party in its looking at the whole elections will take that into consideration, and it might be a question of mobilization.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. And still from Port of Spain, the country needs a contingency plan for shifting weather patterns associated with climate change, so that what happened during the recent floods would not reoccur. Professor Roger Hossain also warns that the economy is in a state of depression and families will need government's aid. More from Nicole M. Romney of TV6 News.
Economist and lecturer Professor Roger Hossain says the flooding will have a severe impact on the economy. He adds, food prices will rise and families who lost everything will need state support.
So the imports of some of these goods would increase, so that would have an implication for the foreign exchange situation. So it would require a lot of balancing by households and careful management by the Minister of Finance to ensure that relief funds reach these households where possible. In good time before the Christmas season, you don't want to have, in the context of this depression, situations where the state can ease the tension, so to say, to refer to the calypso, and they are moving slow.
He tells TV6 the government has not done the best job in handling the country's development strategy.
Our strategy has involved extracting energy resources, collecting energy rents, and spending all out. So if you look at the relationship between energy rents collected or government revenues, energy revenues, and government expenditure, you would see that basically all the energy rents is gone. You would see that we have built up a debt of 130 billion or thereabouts. You would see even after all of that has happened, that the economy is in a depression.
Professor Hossain believes a more calculated and direct approach to increasing the country's finances has to be adopted.
We need to work hard on that fiscal formula for running the Trinidad and Tobago economy so as to lower the gap between government revenue and government expenditure. And when that gap has to be closed, it mustn't be because of random shock influences like Putin, Russia invading Ukraine, and therefore the price of energy goods increase, which is why we had a fiscal surplus. We need it to be because of smart, intelligent intervention.
He further notes the spiraling murder rate and its impact on investments.
This country is en route to having about 605 murders for this year if the trajectory continues. I had used the autoregressive integrated moving average model to forecasted it at 623. It seems it's going to be less than that, about 607. But the point is, with a country facing the highest level of murders in terms of recorded history from the CSO, people are terrified. People will be afraid to invest.
Nicole M. Romney, TV6 News.
Over in St. Lucia, the owner of a bar where British national Donald McKinnon was shot and killed in Soufrière on Saturday afternoon is concerned about the effect this killing could have on the island's tourism industry and more specifically on Soufrière and its future as a tourist attraction. The 51-year-old British estate manager was shot dead while his photographer friend Peter Jackson, 72, is hospitalized. Don Nicholas of the DBS News World reports.
Nancy Francois, who took over the bar from her aunt 15 years ago, described Donald McKinnon, affectionately called Donnie, and his colleague Peter Jackson as two of her best customers. Their relationship was so close that she referred to them as family. But that would suddenly come to an end last Saturday around 4 p.m. when a gunman approached the bar where the two were hanging out, firing shots in their direction. By the time the hail of gunfire was over, McKinnon lay dead inside the place he frequented for so many years. Jackson sustained injuries but managed to escape with his life. McKinnon, who has been living on the island for the past 30 years, managed the Soufrière estate, home to two tourist attractions, the Diamond Waterfalls and Botanical Gardens, with the accompanying Old Mill restaurant and bar. Francois is also concerned about the effect that this will have on the island's tourism industry and business in Soufrière, which has been the mecca for tourist activity over the years. Already, news of the incident has been making the rounds in the British press.
Of course, yes. Of course. I believe. And especially around this area, mostly every day we see tourists come in and sit underneath my veranda, drinking the pito, especially enjoying the little view we have, coming and walk about.
Christopher Suraj, who did maintenance work and ran errands for the deceased, cannot believe that his longtime friend has passed.
Donnie was a good guy to me because when I don't have nothing, Donnie just called me, do an electrician job for him up there. He treated me good. Now he was in charge of the restaurant. He always calling me, go and see if I get fish, giving me sometimes free $400, go and get fish for him. And yesterday and Friday he called me. I had to go view for him today and get some fish. I have to fillet it and clean it. And he had guests today, and they called me at my home, Donnie is dead. They shoot Donnie by the shop. Up to now, I cannot believe it.
Staff members described McKinnon as loving and jovial, one who knew how to treat his employees in a manner that would bring out the best in them. In fact, one of them vividly recalled a conversation he had with them just minutes before the incident.
He was very vibrant with his staff. He loved us very much. He spent the whole of Saturday at the meal with us. He told us he's going to make time for us next week, and we'll have too much of him that we'll chase him out. And he didn't have like 5 minutes, he left us. I'm getting a call, and then they're telling me they just shot my manager in town.
What will you miss most about him?
His jokes. Now, there's one particular staff, he would always say, just shut up. He was very close to us. There's anything that we would go to him, we would be able to be open with him. He would come, he would joke around with us. He was somebody that, no matter what, he trusts us and he knows that his work is getting done. So he don't need to be there with us for the work to get done. So he trusts us, and we had the same level of trust with him.
By all accounts, Donald McKinnon, affectionately known as Donnie, will be sorely missed. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
The Bahamas' Minister of National Security speaks on the issue of resignations within the Bahamas Police Service.
Celebrating life through love and unity, the theme of the recent tree lighting ceremony for the Royal Bahamas Police Force. The event saw music, merriment, and band performances as police headquarters came to life on Friday night. National Security Minister the Honorable Wayne Munro was asked on the sidelines of the event to speak to a threat of Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers wishing to resign.
If you have persons who wish to resign, they would have to apply to resign. If they have outstanding bonds with the government, then I will not let them resign while the bonds are unsatisfied. They're required to come to work until they are released. If they are soldiers and they no longer wish to be soldiers and we discharge them, then we will look for 200, 300 good Bahamians who want to replace them. Every recruitment exercise we do, we recruit 100. We have about 500 applications.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.